This add-on video, we'll be going through an example of how to use a website such as Digi-Key to do your component sourcing. So you've done your flow down of requirements, you've tested everything out, you're ready to go, and we're going to fire up Digi-Key and look for some stuff. Okay, now I know that many of you are familiar and have used websites such as SparkFun to do your work. One of the key things that we would really like you to get familiar doing is using vendors such as Digi-Key to do your component selection. The issue with a lot of vendors such as SparkFun that are primarily geared towards hobbyists is that what's available to you is not as comprehensive. Because of their hobbyist target market, a lot of the items that they sell there are actually more integrated at the subsystem level, and so you really don't have everything that's possible available to you. And so as part of this, while you're working on this project, we encourage you to get familiar with vendors such as Digi-Key or Moser, and do so. I'll do a short example here to get you started. So here's the Digi-Key website. You can see that they have a lot of stuff, and you can kind of work through the product selection process to find what you want. In our case, let's say there's a diode that you've already proven out. You've breadboarded it, you've simulated it, so you're pretty sure it's going to work. You're ready to put it onto a PCB, and say one of the parts that you want to look for is a 4148 diode. So actually, one of the things you can do is, if you don't like the way Digi-Key's search engine, if that isn't working for you, one of the things you can do is just do a search that way to add digikey.com on top of your search, and then you'll see that it's able to pull up, pretty close to the part that you want. That's a great way to get to where you need to be as a starting point without necessarily navigating through the hierarchy. And then one of the things you can do is you can choose one of the products, and then that shows you the navigation path to get to here. So let me just zoom in a little bit on there. So in this case, you can then backtrack away from your component right here and go back to diode rectifier single, so that you start out in the right place. And then if we wanted the 4148, we can put a search in here to narrow it down just to that. And then as you can see, there are a bunch of other filters that you can use to narrow things down. So I think one really good one is to make sure that what you're buying is active. So usually I almost by default have that highlighted. In our case, with our PCBs, you're looking for surface mount photodiodes. And then you also have a lot of other filters that you can use, such as the solder footprint, as well as over here, if you have specific temperature requirements, this is a way to down select as well. So once you have your filter set, you just hit apply all. And then this will bring you all the parts that fit the filter. Another trick that I often like to do is to base my selection somewhat on the amount of quantity that's available, because that's kind of an indicator to how healthy that particular part is. So now you can sort it by descending order by the amount that they have in stock. So also make sure that you get it in time to do your project. And also note that over here, there's 8 million available, but a lot of these are in marketplace by outside vendors. So another way you can add some more insurance policy if you definitely want to buy it. If you wanted to buy it direct from Digi-Key, choose the ones that are in stock. So here's a potential selection over here, and you can see you have the unit price here, which is an important consideration. And then also take note as to how long it'll take to ship. And then you will also have almost a very extensive data sheet here for you to consider. So let's take a look at the data sheet. The one key takeaway that I also wanted to give you is, so over here, you have the key parameters that you can use to compare with your model that you used in your circuit design to make sure that it still works. And then the other thing, it has measurements here, but the other thing that I also wanted you to remember is that, say the part that you have isn't available in your layout tool. So another thing that you can do is that all the data sheets for that you're going to be using for your PCB, they will often have a solder pad layout right here. So another thing that you can do is if you found the perfect part and it's available and you can get it, but it just doesn't happen to be in your library, you can just draw out this solder pad and have confidence that it's going to work. So that's it. Again, to review the key takeaways, remember, what's driving your component selection? Your component selection is driven by requirements, just like your subsystem in your system. So make sure that while you're doing the requirements decomposition, that you come up with the list of requirements that you need for the components and use that as the guiding star in terms of finding out your North Star in terms of what the best component selection is. Separately, remember to incorporate the mechanical design aspects in with your PCB design and make sure that they interface and iterate. Have your mechanical considerations such as how you're going to be mounting the PCB incorporated into your PCB design process. And then finally, get familiar, experiment with the larger electronic component websites such as Digi-Key in terms of doing your sourcing.